In this video I want to talk about dwelling house exemption relief for capital acquisitions tax. So capital acquisitions tax, remember, covers inheritance tax and gift tax, and it is possible to either be gifted or inherit a dwelling house and not pay any tax. So you are exempt from capital acquisitions tax, that's the two taxes, on the inheritance of a dwelling house if you satisfy certain conditions. If you're a dependent relative, the exemption also applies to a gift of a dwelling house where you satisfy certain conditions. Those conditions for after Christmas Day of 2016 are you will be exempt from capital acquisitions tax on the inheritance of a dwelling house. And remember, this is the inheritance, not the gift, the inheritance of a dwelling house. If the house was the only or main home of the person who died, this condition does not apply if you are a dependent relative. So the house must be the only home or main home of the person who passed away. You lived in the house as your only or main home for the 3 years immediately before the date of the inheritance. You do not own or have an interest in any other house. You do not acquire an interest in any other house from the same disposer between the date of the inheritance and the valuation date. The house continues to be your only or main home for 6 years after the date of the inheritance. This does not apply if you're age 65 years or over at the date of the inheritance, or are required by reason of employment to live elsewhere, or are required to live elsewhere because of mental or physical infirmity, and this is certified by a doctor. So in relation to the inheritance of a dwelling house, the house must be the only home or main home of the person who has passed away. You then, as the donee, as the beneficiary, you lived in the house as your only or main home for 3 years immediately before the date of the inheritance. You do not have any other house or interest in any other house, and the house continues to be your only home for 6 years after the date of the inheritance. This means that you can take that dwelling house by way of inheritance tax-free. In relation to a gift, it's slightly different. You'll be exempt from capital acquisitions tax on the receipt of a gift of a dwelling house if, at the date of the gift, you are a dependent relative of the person making the gift because you are unable to maintain yourself due to being permanently and totally incapacitated by mental or physical infirmity, or you're aged 65 years or over at the date of the gift. The house was your main home for the previous 3 years. You do not own or have an interest in any other house. If you satisfy those conditions, then you can take the gift of the dwelling house without paying tax, without any capital acquisitions tax applicable. And to claim the exemption, then you simply fill out a CAT return form IT38 online, and you must return or file that return rather through the Revenue Online service or the My Account service. And there is always the possibility with this relief, as there is with many other reliefs, of a withdrawal or clawback of the exemption if certain conditions are not met. The dwelling house exemption will be withdrawn if you qualified for the exemption but subsequently acquire another interest in a dwelling house from the same disposer. Within 6 years of qualifying for the exemption, you sell the house and do not replace it with another as your only or main home, or you no longer occupy the house within 6 years as your only or main home unless for certain reasons. So if you sell the house and do not use the full proceeds for a replacement, a partial clawback will apply. So that's withdrawal or clawback of the exemption. They are the conditions surrounding the exemption for a dwelling house, and you can take a dwelling house as a gift or as an inheritance and not have to pay either gift tax or inheritance tax in the circumstances that I have just outlined in this video. I hope you find it useful. If you do, I would appreciate if you smash the like button down below, and you may be interested in subscribing to my YouTube channel. If you are, just hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, and you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Thanks a lot.